This is the September market update for Washtenaw County, and the good news is that we were surprised that a couple of things, that inventories, although they're not nearly strong enough for Washtenaw County, they picked up a little bit, maybe some relief in some price ranges this past month. Sales picked up as well. Sales settled in July, so we were wondering if that was an indication of some long-term change. They popped right back up in August. So we're not sure all the reasons for that, but if you take the long-term trend for the balance of the year, it's still an upward movement. Demand is still strong. Washtenaw County, of course, still settles as the strongest economic engine in the state, and downtown Ann Arbor is probably the strongest housing market in the state in terms of demand and activity. So it's got a lot of great economic engines. That activity, although frustrating for buyers in trying to find a home in the city itself, is a benefit for the surrounding communities because buyers are moving out to those markets where they can find a little more plentiful inventory, particularly in the first-time home buyer market. And in Washtenaw County, about half the transactions are $250,000 and below, and about half $250,000 and above. And if you break it up into those two boxes, the under $250,000 is the market with the quietest inventory, the tightest inventory in terms of new listings coming on the market are not coming on as fast as sales, so you're seeing a shrinking every month, and the inventory is probably under 30 days, which is very tight inventory. You go over 250, inventory is getting about 3 months rather, probably 2.5 months, still less than last year by at least a month or more. And although new listings coming into the market are pretty much matching new sales, it's still a tight market, and the higher priced you get, as we've said in prior months, the slower the market is in terms of activity. And much of that's just because the market is just very thin at the upper end. The $500,000 above, there just aren't that many sales, so it doesn't take much of a change to change that dramatically. But we're still seeing about a 6-month supply, so twice as much in the upper end as you would in the middle of 250 to 500. Which means you're going to feel, as a seller in the upper end, you're going to feel the market is a lot slower than your friends and neighbors and relatives and homes that are in the other price categories. However, compared to the rest of Southeast Michigan, where the rest of the upper end market is 11 months or so, it's still one of the stronger upper end markets in Southeast Michigan in general, just not as strong as the rest of Washtenaw County. And although we haven't seen values necessarily decline in the upper end like we've seen in other parts of Southeast Michigan, as we said in prior months, we expect that values to settle in the upper end price range, and maybe in the middle price range as well. But there's no indication, unless there's new construction going on, to feed the lack of inventory of Washtenaw County, particularly in the lower price, the under $250,000. That's still going to be very tight for this fall and certainly the next year as well. So in general, we've got strong demand, but we still have, I think, a little slack in the line, so to speak, in that there still is some affordability still there in the market. In other words, values haven't risen so far that they're approaching bubble level, although it might feel like it to some buyers that are faced in these overbid situations for some markets. But we still have the affordability index, the ability for the median family to afford the median priced home. The index there is 100, so the higher, the more affordable housing is. And for Michigan, that's at about 170 is the index number. For the country, it's about 150. So it tells us that as long as it's up above 130 or so, there's still some buying power left in the marketplace. Buyers can still afford those homes, and that's one of the reasons why values are rising as fast as they can't afford the homes. Interest rates are so low, they're bidding up those prices. But again, we're not seeing prices. If you compare these prices in Washtenaw County to 2005 peak, you're not seeing a big difference. Some have exceeded 2005, particularly downtown and Center City, but the rest of Washtenaw County has come close, in some markets is just starting to get close to 2006. So we're not in a crazy bubble area. Might feel like it, but we're not there yet. And we'll see what happens in upcoming years. But right now, it's a pretty safe bet to invest in housing no matter where you are in Washtenaw County. Values are still rising steadily, and the outlook is still good for the balance of this year. Thanks.